Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your patience. So welcome to this evening's ACY Securities webinar, live forex market review. If you're on our YouTube channel, I cannot see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch or just join us. Just follow the link that I've put in the chat there. Just read through this spam, please, before we move along into the webinar. Any questions, just type them into the question box or the chat box. So just please read through the risk disclaimer. All right, let's move along. So if you don't know me, my name is Duncan. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities, and I'm a full-time forex trader in trading the forex market now for more than 15 years, mentoring clients for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is on screen there, duncan.cooper@acy.com, and you can connect me through the week at our website, acy.com Market News tab, our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia, and you can connect with me personally if you wish on my Twitter and LinkedIn handles there. As well, you can connect with me in our Telegram channel. When providing analysis through the week, if you want to connect with me in there, just contact Nathan Bray. I'll put his details in the chat. If you want to get access to my chart layouts and templates, then just contact Nathan too. So I'll just put that information in the chat. All right, so that's in the chat. And coming up on Monday, just reading the right date tonight. Yesterday's date was incorrect for some reason. It's Monday, the 6th of February, the Inner Circle webinar. That's for ACY clients. So if you're an account holder, then contact Nathan and you're more than welcome to come along and talk to me and talk about trading, and anything to do with trading can be talked about. So come along, just contact Nathan and get your invitation. All right, with that in mind, let's get into, first of all, let's have a look at the news. So now, of course, we have lots of risk events this week. We've had the US interest rate decision this morning, which we got a rise of 25 basis points expected, but apparently the market felt like the tone from the Fed was rather dovish. I've had a look at some of the information that came out. It didn't look particularly dovish to me, but that's how the markets reacted. They're still saying they're going to raise interest rates more, and it's not like they're saying they're not raising interest rates anymore. So, and we're still the highest interest rate currency. So, but in any event, we have seen a US dollar sell-off. Coming up at 10 p.m. tonight, we've got the UK interest rate decision, expecting 50 basis point rise, and the Eurozone at 11:15 p.m. expecting 50 basis point rise. Again, the market's going to be expecting those rises, so that will all be priced in, but they're going to be looking to the forward guidance from those events. And we've got the Eurozone press conference at 11:45. Okay, and then another high impacting news day on Friday for the US job figures coming out at 11:30 p.m. These times are Queensland time. And then 1 o'clock in the morning, we've got the US ISM Services PMI data. Okay, so still lots of risk items coming out for the week. So if you're looking at the pound or the euro, be very aware of those times. Okay, so let's get into the charts now. We may just start with, I did discuss this in Telegram today, the Aussie yen. And this is my day chart look. And I want to go to the weekly chart. And I've talked about this already this week, so it shouldn't be new to you if you've been in the webinars. Weekly trend here is down. We've moved back up to weekly resistance, 92.59. Coincides with a 62% retracement. So are we topping out here to move down? All right, now we're a bit above and below this 91 level of support or resistance here on the day chart. So having failed up here at the 92.59 level and the 62 level, the market's just deliberating, does it now want to move down? Now, I did notice today that the 4-hour structure is down and we keep failing at or above 92. So I showed you countless 79% retracement setups that formed last month. I never know which ones are going to work and which don't. So don't ask me if it's going to work or not, because you don't know it's going to work until you take the trade and then trade it out. But we are holding at the 79% level here. That level's at 92.01. So it's pretty much the figure, 92. Are we going to see a continued move down today, targeting the 127 extension, 90.49? All right. Okay, you can watch it and see whether it does it, or you can decide you want to take a trade. All right. So it is at the moment spiked up there, and it's going to negative back below 92 at the moment on the current candle. So you just need to work out, do you like the level? Do you like the setup? All right, I might just zoom across now to the dollar index, and we'll just have a quick squeeze at that. So this is the last year's trading range. Last year's low up to last year's high. This is the weekly chart. And yes, we are starting to move below that 62 level. We are moving below this weekly support level with the news item of the morning, the Fed's commentary pushing it below 101.28. And we're pretty much maybe just getting some intraday support at 101, but this weekly chart is still in a downtrend. And the monthly chart is still in an uptrend. And which is going to win out? Is this weekly trend going to pull up, maybe in between the 79 and 62 level here, to put in a major bottom for the year? Or is it simply just going to keep selling off? All right. At the moment, for whatever reason, I can't remember the last time we had a US dollar news item that came out that wasn't negative, or that following it, the market just reacted negatively to it. But I mean, sooner or later, something positive is going to come from the US, where the market is going to put in either a long-term bottom or an interim bottom. Now, we might get an interim bottom where we then rally up to put in a lower top, to then, yes, significantly come down this way. Or we're going to put in a significant bottom rather than an interim bottom to run up to test last year's high. So this is, quite overextended in its move. So you just have to be aware of that. But at the moment, the day chart here, this is still downtrend. And I said last week, and I think the week before, until this really shows you a higher top, higher bottom, it's in a downtrend. And when we did get a higher top up here, but then it couldn't create a higher bottom. So we had a false move up. So until we see structure that says higher top, higher bottom, we're still really, and most of this move down is relative to the euro dollar moving up, because the euro dollar is 55% of the dollar index. But this is the only thing we've got as a weighted thing to look at what is the strength or weakness of the US dollar. So we'll just have to use how it's formed. So it is being dragged down by the euro dollar moving up. So, but until we can see higher tops and bottoms, it might be a bit foolhardy, especially on the euro dollar, trying to short it, So let's get into, I'm just going to go left to the Aussie. We'll move through them all. All right, so the Aussie did have, I was expecting maybe this week that we were, finally having a double top. Go to the weekly chart here. Finally having a double top forming here. 71.37. And we'd sold off back below 71, and I was just looking for a lower top to form. Now, you can see that we've moved above that level to a higher top, but we can see that we are rejecting. Now, I'm not suggesting at the moment that we're topping. I mean, we might be topping, but we've still got higher tops and bottoms. We're not putting in a lower top yet. So until I can really see a lower top, there's still every chance that we could be moving higher yet on the Aussie dollar. Is it at a level that I like? Not necessarily. Look, I'm not going to sell straight into weekly resistance here, where we could still be forming a double top here, but I'm not going to sell into that level. I'm going to have to see, if I want to be a buyer, I'm going to have to see this, 71.37 is your clear reference level. With all the volatility of this morning, we've obviously traded above it. Now, over the next couple of days, if we continually hold there and see a 4-hour downtrend start to form, okay, I might get a bit more excited about being a seller. But what might occur is we simply move through this level with some conviction, and then we pull back to this level to be support to trade up off. Now, at the moment, it isn't doing that. You can see at the moment, we're having an outside reversal candle. And if you wanted to be really aggressive, there is a 4-hour entry. We're breaking the low of the last candle, and it's an outside candle reversing back below major resistance. So an aggressive trader could be shorting there. We could be failing there, but I just feel with non-farm payroll coming out tomorrow, the wise attack would probably be wait for the non-farm payroll to pass tomorrow and then look at, where's the key level? What's price doing now at that key level? Now, of course, we could be 100 pips further down from that level before then. We could just totally reverse today, but you need to make your decision on that. How much do you want to see in terms of a reversal before you decide you want to engage and move down from that level if we're failing? All right. So at the moment, I think it's a bit early on the back of what we had from the Fed Reserve reaction to the market this morning, but I am going to be watching that 71.37 over the next week. We discussed, if you were with me yesterday in the webinar yesterday, we discussed this head and shoulder pattern forming. You can just sit tight at the moment and wait for some form of pattern to form here to say, okay, it's time to sell. All right, just don't have to jump in. It is highly volatile at the moment, okay? So even though we've traded above, we are still back below now. So what's really happening is a whole bunch of people have stepped in at the moment, decided this is going north to wherever, 73, 74, getting long, but really are the institutional traders sitting above there taking all those buy orders and selling. All right, because it's moving down as I'm talking. All right, so if this started to move back below 71 and started to try, wanting to be below 71, that's going to start to maybe confirm that yes, we're fading up there. All right, but ultimately it's still in an uptrend there. So there's the other side of the market. You could be dragging the fib up from higher bottom to higher top and monitoring a pullback for the next upward move. All right. I was feeling like we'd topped out, but of course we've gone to a fresh high at the moment. All right, so you can monitor that level. Do we start to see further failure? Or does that level become support for a move higher? Euro yen. Now, I'm going to get rid of that line because we're a bit above it at the moment. But ultimately, this is just in a very large range. And this low here, if I move to the weekly chart, is weekly resistance here. All right. And daily resistance up here. So I've got a band of resistance there, which we failed at there twice over the last couple of months. So if we can get up into that level, that's the level I'm looking for a short. All right, I'm not just going to short it, but I'm going to have a keen look in that area once we get in there for a reversal, okay? All right, so that's my area, 142.55 up to 142.94. Now at the moment it's very sideways here. That's why I'm just staying away. This is, we got there and we heavily sold off. We got there, we heavily sold off. So what I'm looking for is if we get back into that level, will the same thing occur? All right. So until we get there, I'm not doing anything, but that's the level I'm watching at the moment. And as I said last night's webinar, reviewing what happened the month before. It's not about trading every day. It's about clearly defining the best areas to trade from. That's a great area to look for a reversal. Now, can we get there? I don't know. But if we get there, I'm definitely going to be watching it. All right. And we could get there today because we've got the Eurozone interest rate decision today. All right. So watch that area later in the day. Euro dollar. Now, what are we? 3 days ago, it was looking like it was rejecting up here at 109 and maybe topping out. But of course, the morning news has driven it straight above 10900 up to 110, fraction above 110. All right. Now, if it keeps driving up, we could be heading towards the 7% retracement at 110.75. We could get there today with the Eurozone announcement. That's definitely a level to watch for failure. 110.75. So this fib range is the range of last year's trading range. So watch 110.75. If we get up to that level, start to reverse. That could be a good level to watch. At the moment, the level that we're failing at, as the volatility picked up this morning and we got driven up, is an old weekly top from over here at 110.18. So we're just underneath 110 at the moment. So previous to the driven up price action today, we've been kind of failing at 109. So maybe we might start to now see some selling pressure at 110 back down to 109. And then 109 may be becoming support for the market. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so when the ECB raises interest rates and have their press conference, watch up here at 110.75 if it spikes up. If it trades down, then the level that we've broken above this week is at 109.27. So that could be support. All right. This lower line is an old monthly low at 108.79, which was the level that we were failing at 2 or 3 days ago before the market spiked up. So whatever the ECB says tonight, I mean, we could simply get driven straight back down below 108.79. And then next week, we could be looking at 108.79 and back to the 109 level to be resistance for a movement back down the range. We are very high up here. I mean, how high can it go before we get a significant correction? All right, so a few levels there to watch if you want to be engaging later on in the day. Do we come up to 110.75? Start to reverse. Do we come back down to 109.27, 10900 for support? Okay. All right, pound yen. Now, if I was to get rid of that level, which we are below it, but it could still be support. Let's just get rid of it. We're in a range here. We're holding up here. We're holding down here. So I don't like to be trading right where it is because we're almost in the middle of the range. So for me to trade this pair at the moment, I would need to see this up here again, looking for it to fail. Or I would need to see it down here now, looking for it to get support. All right. In the middle of where it is at the moment, in the middle of the range, doesn't excite me too much. Just drop it down to the 4-hour chart. I mean, it is showing you a nice kind of lower top, lower bottom scenario, and you could be looking to trade continuation patterns. Now rolling back up to 62.79, but you're in the middle of the range now. If you're in a range, you want to be looking to sell at the top, trade to the bottom, not in the middle, because once you're in the middle, support can come in at the middle, and then price can drive all the way back up to the top. All right. By this point, if you're trading up here, by this point, you should be risk-free, hoping that price will just keep progressing down. This isn't the best spot to be a trader when we're in a range. All right. But you can decide where you want to trade yourself. Might form a continuation to move down. If we draw a fib from where it is right now up to the high there, we don't know what kind of volatility will come out when the pound UK interest rate decision comes out, or we may get driven up. So, back up, watching up here, it's 161.53, 161.17, the 79% fib level, and that resistance level. If price was to get driven up to there and you start to see it hold once more at the top of the range, this is where you look for yourself. So it might present an opportunity or it might not. Where it is right now, it's in the middle of the range, so it doesn't excite me. So you can watch that. Pound dollar. Now, we know the euro dollar blew north and took out the recent high, whereas we're still negative for the week on the pound dollar. All right. that double top that we're waiting to see if it long-term holds and we move down. It is holding. Now, will it hold for the rest of the week? When the interest rate decision comes out, we may well come up. We've got some tops here that have been forming. Now, this weekly tops at 124.47, we could come up to that level. If it got driven up to 124.47 and it simply held and started to reverse, you have to treat that like a failure, retest failure. All right. So to the 4-hour chart now, we've moved down. We came up to this point here, and then we've been moving down. And I've already noticed this today. I'm not engaging because we've got the interest rate decision coming out, but look, 123.91 is your monthly level of resistance that we've discussed before. There's a 79% level, and we're selling off from that level. So even though we got driven up, that 4-hour candle couldn't close above, traded above. That candle couldn't close above. That candle closed on. There's a 4-hour entry there to go short on the break of that blue candle, and we're already trading down. Now, of course, you've got the news to worry about. But earlier in the week in Telegram, I think price action was more, I think it was more here when I did my analysis. I was looking, set up here, watch the 12400 level and the 79% fib. Yes, you would have needed to readjust as price went down, but the 79% pretty much stayed almost at the same level, 123.96 in this case, and we went up to 124.01. All right. And it's likely telling me it's currently closing an imbalance. I think on the 15-minute chart, I noticed, I think it was this pair. No, it wasn't this pair, it was another pair. I think it was the Aussie yen. It was a slight imbalance, got filled when it moved up today. Let me just move back to the Aussie yen. Yeah, I was looking at this little imbalance here. That got filled. And now we've rejected down. So on the pound dollar, there is an imbalance there on there. Bit of an imbalance. Well, I don't know if there is an imbalance up there. I'm not seeing an imbalance here. Are you talking about this imbalance here to get filled to the downside? All right, you're talking to the downside. I thought you were talking about the upside. So this massive imbalance here, we're coming down at the moment to fill this imbalance. So there's an imbalance just here. And if you went to the 1-hour chart, potentially there's all this imbalance here. All right. So it's moving down to fill the 4-hour imbalance. And, you know, it could well move down to fill the 1-hour imbalance. Okay. I mean, this in relation to what we're seeing on the euro dollar and the Aussie dollar today, being driven up, the pound dollar is by nowhere near as strong. All right, it is, by the looks of things, potentially. Back to my 4-hour chart. Could be potentially topping out up there. I mean, it's still getting support to the day chart, this weekly top. I said watch that level earlier in the week, that even though we were selling down, we could get support on that weekly top. So we really need to see a break below 122.93 with some clear conviction, because we're getting a little bit range bound in here. It keeps meeting sellers at the top, but it's getting support on that weekly top over here. So if you're on the sell side thinking that it's double tops forming, you really need to see 122.93. You see it held. We really need to break 122.93 with some conviction, okay? Hopefully we do today. All right. All right, but when the news comes out, it could give you the opportunity up here for a retest and failure, all right, to move to the downside once more. I mean, of course, I've seen some people saying we're going to, there's some articles on forexfactory.com. I saw some headlines there saying we're going to 125 today. I don't know if we are or not, but I do know that if it moves up to 124.47, You can't get to 125 if price holds there, okay? All right, New Zealand yen, very range bound. I've actually got kind of three areas drawn in here. There's an area here, there's an area here, and there's an area here. So resistance, resistance area, support area. All right. Now, at the moment, this is not the most exciting price action, but if you just watch it through the course of the month, it is going to visit one of these areas through the course of the month. All right. It is, in fact, it is, well, it's not, that was last month when we touched just there. But this week, we've already touched this area and you've already missed that opportunity. But I'm pretty sure over the course of the month, we're going to move to there, or we're going to move to there, or we're going to move to there. All right. So those three areas are great areas to look for a reversal. So you don't have to think about where's my next intraday trade on this pair. It's very range bound, but it is giving you clear support and resistance areas that the market's holding to. So just simply wait for it to get to one of those areas. Then what does it do? All right. Right now, if I was, looking at, if it was to come back up, draw a fib across there, 79 cents, 84.49, and your first level of resistance is at 84.66. So if it comes up into there and starts to turn around, then look to sell at 79 and stop above the high for a move down. And Cameron, you're asking me, so you were mainly trading the reversal at key levels. Do you trade many continuation setups? Well, it just depends what I'm seeing. At the moment, what I'm seeing is there's some clear areas of resistance or support. So then if price is going to stop and reverse, I'm trading a reversal. It all depends what the market's offering at the time. This particular pair is very range bound. So, you'd have to pick the key areas of support and resistance and look for reversals, because that's what the market keeps doing. All right. All right, New Zealand dollar. All right, so we've already discussed the Aussie. What's the Aussie doing right now? Still below 171.37, reversing. All right, so New Zealand dollar, like I was sure 2 days ago, this had already failed, but we have put in a fresh high, but we can't hold the high. I put in Telegram today that if we start to, over the next day or two, start to shift below 65, watch 65 to be resistance again, like it's been doing for a number of weeks. So there is still the possibility that we're going to hold here. We've traded into monthly resistance here. I'm not going to buy in that area. It's just too strong a resistance area. All right, it's going to have to break above there for me to start to think about being a buyer. Now, this is a weekly top. Next level, if we break above the level that we're false breaking, is at 65.76. Now, 65.27 is your monthly level. This is your weekly level that we keep false breaking at 65.13. We're trading at 65.08. If you want to be aggressive, it's a sell. I know still got the job figures coming out, so I'm being relatively cautious until we get past that. But I mean, if you want to be aggressive, it's at these levels on, say, the Aussie, the New Zealand, and the pound. So maybe it's a positional trade with 100 pip stop above your area of resistance. All right, if you want to be aggressive, but you need to work out yourself if you want to be aggressive or not. All right, so 65.27 is the key level to watch at the moment. Earlier in the day, I'm just going to drop it down to the 4-hour chart. When I did my analysis this morning, I was saying I'm looking for a negative candle to move back below 65.13 and all these 4-hour tops here. That top's at 65.04. So if we move back below 65, then I'm looking at 65 to be resistance. I'm looking at all these tops once more to be resistance. If we can move below, if we move below, then does it become a resistance once more, like it was through here, to move back down? All right, now at the moment, we're showing a reversal. And if you took a 4-hour entry, you're already in profit and you could already get yourself at break even. All right. But it is counter to what trend we've been seeing over the last, what would you say, 12 hours. Like this could just have a one candle down, get support at 65 and then move back up. All right. So seeing some negativity below 65, looking for 65 to get retested as resistance. We could be back down to 64 in 2 or 3 trading days. All right, with a complete failure once more up at the 65 to 65.27 level. All right, now if this clearly breaks north, well, 65.27 could be support over the next week, but you can see that it's not clearly breaking it; it's false breaking. Don't forget, this is last month's high. It's very difficult if you're a new trader. When we get all this very high volatile price action screaming up, everybody thinks it's going to break that level and clear it and go north. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, if you just sit back and wait, price just stalls. It tries to trade through for a while. I mean, I was sure earlier in the day. I thought earlier in the day when I was looking at the 15-minute chart, we started to show a bit of a higher bottom here on the 15-minute chart on top of that level of resistance. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe this is going high, but now you can see it broke below, try to come back up, outside candle down. So clearly the sellers are coming in now at that level. All right, so can we move below 65? Can it become resistance intraday? Next week, look at 65. What's happening at 65 next week? Is it being resistance once more for further failure? All right, dollar Canadian. Now, it's in this range. Let me just get rid of that line. That's a weekly top. And we have a weekly bottom here. So I've been saying all the time that we have a higher bottom and a lower top. So trend is a bit mixed. I know if we can't break that low, so this, this is like pure support and resistance. This low comes in on this whole top. This top comes in at this top. So which side of the market is going to win? So at the moment, I would just be watching 132.23. I'm going to get rid of that line. There's your weekly range. We're getting back down to the bottom of the range. Can we come down to 132.23? Hold, do a reverse back up. That's what I'll be watching for on that pair at the moment. All right. Doesn't matter if we spike, it doesn't matter if we trade underneath here, but if you're watching, like I was just showing you, say the New Zealand dollar there, we're getting that reversal there. All right. If you're watching the dollar Canadian on the 4-hour chart, you're just watching that level for the same sort of reverse. Doesn't matter if it trades through, but then if it has a rejection candle, you trade above that candle on the next 4-hour candle. There's your entry back up from support. All right. So just monitor that range. What happens down here at 132.23? Let's go to dollar yen. I want to click on. Now, still in a downtrend. And in Tuesday's webinar, I said watch 130.40. We are not able to move above 130.40 with any conviction. And if you were simply trading up here at 130.40 for a sell, stop above, you'd be profitable. See all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days here. I think even yesterday traded at 130.40. Almost traded at 130.41. All right, now let's just move to the weekly chart. This trend is still down on the weekly. Okay, I just want to get, that's last year's low to high. We have today come down to the 62 level of last year's trading range, and we are obviously holding there. So I don't know whether we're getting support there. We haven't, unlike say the euro dollar moving up to a fresh high, the dollar yen isn't able to move down to a fresh low. So I don't know yet if we're getting support down here at the 62 level there. We're obviously not breaking below that weekly support. So at the moment, we're kind of in the range of support and resistance here. 130.40 is resistance and 127.21 is your support level. Can we move down to support or not? Now your day trend, it's been very consolidatory. It has broken down there, but it is looking like it's a bit of a false break. Now, last month, I discussed this area, had a fib set up across this range, 79% level to move up. And yes, it moved up, but it obviously got held at the weekly resistance level. But there's this 4-hour, all these 4-hour lows here. That's where price has found support at the moment. So I don't know if we can get another move back down into that area. It all coincides with the 62% level. All right. But if we did come back down to this area once more, and you see a reversal, it's reversing at where it reversed last time, isn't it? So at the low levels where it reversed last time, it's showing the same thing. So I would be looking and watching 128.16 down to 128.100. What happens there? Do we trade back down into the area once more? Do we see 4-hour support down there? If we get another reversal on the 4-hour chart in this area, there's a high chance then that this is going to come back up to there. Now, it may already be reversing and it might not give you that second retest. This may already be coming back up to 130.40. All right, because it's getting support from over here. So it might be friendly. It may give you a retest. So if it does get back down in there, it might get back down in there. So tomorrow in the job figures, it may come into this area. All right. But if it holds and starts to reverse back above 128, I think there's every possibility it can move back up to 130.40. All right. Last one to look at. Oh, we didn't go through the S&P 500. We went through the dollar index and then I just moved left. So we're saying the dollar index is obviously bearish still at the moment. And the S&P 500. Now, if I go to my monthly chart, that's a 79% fib of the monthly range that we're into right now. And yes, we're trading above what is monthly resistance at 140.104. So on the back of the news coming out this morning, early morning, we're trying to move up through here, but we've got this top and that top there. So can it move above those tops? Can it move above the one? Can it move above the 41.44 79% fib level there? You know, if that on the daily chart simply, sorry, wrong time frame on the day chart. If that simply reverses today and gets back below 140.104, the monthly resistance, then we could be topping out here. So your weekly tops here, that 41.59 and 41.32. We need to see a clear break above these tops, and then we could be moving obviously up. But if we see a false break, so I might just color that area in. If we see a false break, a reversal, false break of this area, that's where the market's holding at right now. We simply have a reversal day today back below 41.04. Kind of got a triple top there for me. All right. So I know where the trend is. The trend is up. but it's not, you know, if you're wanting to trade the S&P 500 today, is that really where you want to buy? No, it's not. So we're trading into resistance. Can the market move through that area, or are we going to see a reversal? All right, let's have a look at gold. Now, having an outside up week, it tried to get back below 1920 on a couple of trading days this week, but ultimately we're now coming out. I put a new line in. Now on the monthly chart, looking at pure trend, this monthly chart is down. I know it's going up, but that's a double top to a lower bottom. Is this coming up to put in the lower top? It's coming up to the left-hand side here at the moment to some previous weekly highs. I put in the first top there. It's at 1959.29. Now, this isn't a clear uptrend at the moment. I'm not going to argue with that. But is it where you want to buy? All right, that's what you have to ask yourself. It's easy to, I don't think it's that much ambiguity when looking at charts. Is it an uptrend or a downtrend? But is it the best place to be a trader right now? All right. You know, if the trend's going to remain in play, you need to look for, draw a fib and look for a dip. 62 levels, very close to 62 levels at 1923, very close to 1920. The big, you know, the big area to watch is still that 1920 level. If it comes back down to that level and it offers supports, that's another buying opportunity. All right. But we are getting quite high up here. We're almost at that weekly resistance level. Okay. We may have touched it today. Where have we been at? All right, so we fractionally traded above that weekly level. And the next significant, you know, analytical tool here is a 79% fib at 1972. So we're getting into where people potentially, if you've done all your buying down here, this is where you're starting to think about, should I take profit? All right. I don't think it's where you should be looking to be a buyer, but on a dip back to 1920, you could be a buyer. Of course, you could have been doing that yesterday. See, yesterday sat on 1920. So you might not get that opportunity again because it gave it to you yesterday. All right, but in terms of, are we going to continue up or are we going to reverse? As long as we're holding above 1920 at the moment on any pullbacks, the buyers are still in control. If we start to get a series of days closing below 1920, well, it's a different story. So we're not seeing a change in trend yet. It was looking a bit dicey earlier in the week, especially when price was down here at 1900. People may have been starting to think, okay, are we starting to reverse? But it couldn't break that support low and it's still holding its trend at the moment. So still holding the trend. I don't know if I want to be a buyer so high up though. Okay. Watch 1920. That will still be the line in the sand maybe over the next couple of weeks, 1920. As I said last night, we don't have to trade a day. We don't have to trade tomorrow. But where are the best spots on the chart to trade if price gets there? 1920 is a decision level on the chart. Okay. All right. Any questions, everybody? Of course, we've got. Like we say, it might go to 2000 or form a triple top. Yeah, it could, I mean, this is quite strong at the moment. It could, of course, come up to these tops. All right. I'm sure if you're an economist, I've seen economists at the moment saying we're going to 3000. All right. Well, we have to get past 2000 first. All right. We need to break above those highs before we can get to 3000. So we shall see. Because I heard economists when we were coming up here that we were going to 2500. Well, we never got to 2500. We went back down to 1600. So I'm not sure whether economists often know exactly where the price points are on the chart that could stop a move, but I don't want to be too tough on economists. All right, so it's in a nice trend. Just I don't think you want to be buying the top of the market, looking for a pullback. As I say, critical level is 1920. Will that still hold support if it pulls back? And Slav is telling me in Europe there are big problems brewing which are not talked about. I'm sure there's big problems everywhere that's not being talked about, but with all, you know, the inflation, if we talked about inflation, and it's high in the UK and it's high in Europe, and even if we talk about inflation in Australia, we're at what, 7.8%? I can tell you now, inflation is definitely above 7.8% because I go to the shops and buy stuff, and I can see what I bought last month or the month. You know, if I buy a certain item 2 months ago and I buy it now, some of the items I'm buying right now have gone up 20%. All right, so I know inflation is not at 7.8%, and that's what they're saying is in you know, Australia. So what they're saying is inflation is, and what inflation really is, are two different things. So what we also then have to understand is ultimately the market is working to the actual inflation, not the one that they're reporting. So, you know, if inflation really gets out of control, or, you know, if central banks just keep raising interest rates to get inflation under control, then perhaps Europe, the UK, the US, even Australia might go into recessions. And then what are we going to see happen then? So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, so on the front at the moment, for the next couple of days, we have to contend with interest rates in the UK, the Eurozone, and the US job figures. So once we get past that, I'm just going to have a look at next week. We've got the cash rate for the Aussie. I'm guessing we're expecting at least a 25 basis point rise there. All right, and in all probability, this, you know, quite aggressive move that we've seen over the last day on the Aussie is just pricing that in. You know, so we might see a bit of a relief pullback when that gets announced, unless we get like a 50 basis point rise and the RBA comes out and says something very, very hawkish that we're going to have to start raising rates at 50 basis points every month now for the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. But I don't think they will be saying that, but we'll have to wait and see. So I'm just going to see what's coming out next week. Not too much next week. UK GBP figures, but not too much from the US there. Fed Chair Powell speaking at 3 in the morning on Wednesday. So I'm sure he could do something for the market. But other than that, we've got Bank of England Bay speaking, so he could do something for the pound. I did see some commentary saying that whilst the UK is raising its interest rates at the moment at 50 basis points, one economist is saying that in all probability, the Bank of England will start to reduce rates because of recession fears and the fact that, you know, people can't afford such high interest rates. So that would then be negative for the pound, but we'll have to wait and see whether that comes to fruition. So yes, 3 central banks will be speaking next week in some form or fashion: pound, Aussie, and the US. So be aware of those items. Yes, we've got the Canadian unemployment figures as well on Friday next week too. So that's what's coming up. Nowhere near as volatile as this week. So once we get past this week, hopefully it's a bit easier to trade and price gets to some good levels and just turns around. So just before I go, let's just have a look at the Aussie yen. What's that doing? So Aussie yen, it is definitely having difficulty up there at the 92 area. All right. So you've had an opportunity to trade there if you wanted to. Aussie dollar, it is back below that weekly top. Are we reversing? Euro yen pretty stagnant. Euro dollar is pretty much sticking just under 110. Right, pound yen still looking relatively negative. It's, as I say, it's in the middle of that range, so it's not that attractive. But you know, if I was just looking at that right now, no news coming out to affect things, you know, I'd probably say, well, is it moving down to the bottom? But I don't like to be trading in the middle of the range. Pound dollar, not liking it up there at the 124. So watch 124 up to 124.47 later in the day. Not much going on in New Zealand yen at the moment. Just watch those levels. New Zealand dollar. So I did get a little bit of support just ahead of 65 at the moment. All right. That's why when I put my analysis out today, I don't want 65 to be support. I want 65 to break and then show to be resistance as we move back up. Because at the moment, 65 could be support. It can't hold above 65.27, but 65 could be support intraday at the moment. All right, and dollar Canadian watch 132.23. Could spike down there for sure tomorrow on the job figures. All right. And the dollar yen, they're discussing down here. Now, if we come back down, we try to break below 128.00 and it holds on small as it was holding down here previously in the middle of January. We may well see a reversal down there. So that's another good level to watch. All right, everybody, you've got plenty of levels you can watch there. Just be careful of the news items coming out. Other than that, thanks very much for your time. Coming up next week, my webinar page doesn't seem to want to work tonight, but we got market analysis next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Sydney time, okay? Live market analysis. So we'll be able to pick up from what the job figures did. All right, hopefully the weather's nice where you are. I'm on the Gold Coast and it's stinking hot, so I'll be a weekend down the beach, hopefully. So hopefully you got some nice weather where you are. So have a great weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. Thank you.